She had everything most people only dream about. Private flights, mansions, power by proximity. And even with all of that, she chose betrayal. What she didn't know is that silence is dangerous when it belongs to a man who controls empires. And that some mistakes don't destroy you. They refine you. Stay until the end. This story doesn't explode. It freezes, and then it conquers. Subscribe. She looked at me like I was invisible. Not broke. Not weak. Invisible. That was the first insult I couldn't unsee. At dinners, she avoided my hand. At events, she walked ahead of me. Like standing beside me lowered her value. She loved the money. She loved the access. But she hated the man who created it. When people asked what I did, she answered for me. She simplified. She minimized. Almost embarrassed. That night, in the mirror, I saw it clearly. She didn't admire me anymore. And admiration doesn't fade by accident. I stayed silent. Not because I didn't notice, but because I wanted to see how far disrespect would go. And she didn't stop there. She started coming home later. Not explaining. Not apologizing. Just assuming I wouldn't question it. Her phone never left her hand. Screen always faced down. Notifications muted like secrets begging to breathe. When I asked simple questions, she smiled. That slow, arrogant smile. The one that says, "You're not in control anymore." I noticed new clothes. New confidence. A version of her that didn't come from me. She stopped asking my opinion. Stopped sharing plans. Stopped pretending we were a team. Every instinct told me to leave. Every red flag screamed loud. But I chose silence over confrontation. Not because I was afraid. Because I wanted proof. And proof takes patience. I let her think she was winning. And that was my mistake. She didn't want privacy anymore. She wanted attention. And attention doesn't come from loyalty. Suddenly she was everywhere. Exclusive gyms. Private events. Places where status breathes louder than morals. Her social circle changed fast. Influencers. Luxury trainers. Men who sell lifestyle, not substance. I watched her laugh at jokes she didn't understand. Smile at men who didn't know her. Perform happiness like a role. At home she was distant. Cold. Almost irritated by my presence. I realized something painful. She wasn't bored. She was auditioning. And marriages don't survive auditions. They survive commitment. That's when I understood. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her platform. And platforms are meant to be climbed and abandoned. She told me she had a work dinner. Private. Important. Don't wait up. Her tone was casual. Almost rehearsed. Like someone who had practiced in front of a mirror. I didn't argue. Didn't question. I nodded and smiled. 2 hours later, my phone vibrated. A photo. Not sent to me. She was tagged. Wrong account. Wrong setting. A rooftop bar. Champagne. A man's hand on her lower back. She looked relaxed. Free. Like she belonged there. The lie wasn't the dinner. The lie was thinking I wouldn't see. I closed the app. Locked my phone. And said nothing. Because the first lie is never the most dangerous. It's the ones that follow. I didn't need to zoom in. I already knew that face. Confidence rented. Power borrowed. He wasn't random. He was connected. A luxury personal trainer who orbited elite circles. The kind of man who lives off proximity. Off reflections. Off other people's success. I had seen him before. At events. At gyms I financed without knowing. He looked at her like a trophy. She looked at him like an escape. Neither looked like loyalty. That's when it hit me. She didn't trade me for love. She traded stability for validation. In her mind he was exciting. Dangerous. A symbol of rebellion. What she didn't understand is this. Men like him don't build empires. They rent moments inside them. And she had just stepped into a temporary illusion. Thinking it was an upgrade. I stopped checking her schedule. Stopped asking questions. Stopped reacting. Silence makes careless people bold. And she became fearless. She missed important dates. Arrived late to events that mattered. Sometimes didn't show up at all. When confronted, she flipped it. Called me controlling. Said I was too intense. That word again. The favorite weapon of guilty people. She accused me of emotional absence. While emotionally living somewhere else. With someone else. I watched her rewrite reality. Paint herself as trapped. Paint me as the villain. And that's when I decided. I wouldn't interrupt the story she was creating. I'd let her finish it. Because the deeper the lie, the harder the fall. It wasn't her phone. She guarded that like a vault. It was her confidence that betrayed her. She left an account open. A secondary one. The kind people use when they think they're smarter than consequences. Messages stacked like evidence. Voice notes. Inside jokes that weren't meant for a husband. Plans were already made. Trips. Hotels. Timelines that erased me completely. She talked about me like an obstacle. Like something in the way. Not a man who built everything she stood on. What hurt wasn't the intimacy. It was the disrespect. The way she reduced me to a problem to manage. I didn't confront her. Didn't explode. Didn't react. I closed the app slowly. And in that moment something shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. I didn't cry. Didn't beg. Didn't demand explanations. I pulled back. Emotionally. Strategically. I stopped sharing numbers. Stopped talking about deals. Stopped bringing her into rooms she didn't deserve. She noticed the distance. Not emotionally. Financially. Access disappeared first. Then invitations. Then influence. She asked what was wrong. I said nothing. Silence again. What she didn't realize is this. When a man detaches quietly, he's not losing control. He's repositioning. I redirected my focus. New partnerships. New expansions. Bigger moves. While she was chasing attention. I was building something she could never touch. And she still thought she had time. She felt it before she understood it. The silence changed texture. It wasn't distance anymore. It was absence. Invitations stopped reaching her. Names she used to drop stopped answering. Doors opened slower, or not at all. She asked questions differently now. Softer tone. Careful words. Fear disguised as concern. She tried to reconnect physically. Small touches. Forced smiles. Sudden interest. I didn't reject her. I ignored the performance. There's a difference. That's when panic showed up. Not guilt. Not love. Fear of losing position. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing status. And desperation makes people reckless. She started making quiet moves. Too quiet. The kind people make when they think ahead of consequences. Legal questions disguised as curiosity. Comments about fairness. About what she deserved. She asked about assets she never helped build. About companies she never understood. About protections she suddenly feared losing. At the same time, she was still disappearing at night. Still lying. Still assuming I was blind. She wanted a clean exit. Money in one hand. Validation in the other. What she didn't know is this. I had already seen everything. Every transfer. Every conversation. I let her continue. Because the moment someone believes they're safe, they expose everything. And she was about to expose herself completely. I didn't accuse her. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't corner her with evidence. I just listened. She talked more when I stayed calm. Explained herself too much. Contradicted timelines she forgot to memorize. She blamed stress. Then loneliness. Then said nothing really happened. But lies stack differently when they're spoken aloud. They trip over each other. They leave gaps. I asked one question. Slow. Precise. Her face changed. Eyes searching for an escape. Silence where confidence used to live. That was the confession. Not in words. In collapse. And she didn't even realize she had just given me everything. There was no shouting. No dramatic accusations. No begging for explanations. I told her it was over. Come. Final. She laughed at first. Thought it was a tactic. A threat she could negotiate. When she realized I was serious, her voice cracked. Questions spilled out. Promises followed. I didn't answer. I stood up. And walked away. That moment broke her script. No villain speech. No closure she could control. She wasn't losing a husband. She was losing access. And access is addictive. She stayed frozen. Still believing I'd come back. Still underestimating silence. But silence doesn't return. It replaces. My life didn't slow down. It sharpened. I changed environments. New cities. New circles. Higher standards. People around me didn't ask what I owned. They respected what I built. The difference mattered. Meanwhile, her calls increased. Messages longer. Tone softer. Urgency louder. She wanted conversations. Closure. Understanding. What she really wanted was relevance again. A seat near power. A familiar safety net. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Growth creates distance. And distance reveals intentions. She was running toward what I had already outgrown. She told people a different version. Said I changed. Said success made me cold. She needed a narrative where she wasn't wrong. Where betrayal sounded like self-discovery. Where loss looked like choice. But reality doesn't care about stories. It shows up quietly, in invitations that never return, in calls that stop being answered. The man she chose faded fast. Opportunities dried up. Attention moved on. That's when regret appeared. Not dramatic. Silent. Heavy. She reached out one last time. No accusations. No pride. Just absence in her words. I didn't reply. Some chapters don't deserve edits. They deserve endings. And hers was already written. She saw me again. Not in person. From a distance. New company announced. Bigger numbers. Names that don't repeat mistakes. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Growth doesn't check mirrors. She finally understood. Not what she lost, but what she'll never touch again. The silence hurt more than anger. Because anger keeps a door open. Silence locks it. I became precise. Selective. Untouchable. And she was left with memory. And regret. And questions no one answers. Power doesn't scream. It moves. Some people don't leave your life. They lose access. And the most painful realization isn't betrayal. It's understanding you traded permanence for attention. What would you have done? If this story made you uncomfortable, good. It was supposed to. Subscribe to the channel. Here we don't chase attention. We watch what happens when people do. New stories every week. Real power. Real silence. Real consequences. Subscribe now.